Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is a fantastic chilling camping adventure. Please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share, it really does help build the channel and our community further. And of course, don't forget to hashtag Team Fear. If you haven't subscribed to DMT, what are you waiting for? Please do smash the subscribe button. And of course, throat punch the notification bell to stay up to date with all DMT content. And so, without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled A Group of Campers Went Missing in Alaska. I was sent to investigate. Let's get straight into that. If you were to name a monster, I've most likely hunted it. I take assignments that send me all over the world, and I get paid quite handsomely for my work. Monster hunters in my league are few and far between, and I wouldn't recommend calling one of us in for something like a skinwalker, as those are below my pay grade. Occasionally though, I'll pick up one of those jobs, if work is slow. Unlike many of my fellow hunters, I'm not affiliated with any organisation. I'm more like a private contractor, a private Grim Reaper, if you will. Eventually, I became good enough at my job that my colleagues started to actually call me Reaper. But you guys can call me Lance. It really doesn't make any difference to me. Nicknames don't carry any sort of weight with me. I just consider myself lucky to come back alive after each hunt. Now, for the story. I can guarantee that's why you're all here. This is my most recent hunt, and is also my closest brush with death. It started like any other day. I woke up, went through my morning routine, and received a call while I was eating some bacon and eggs at a local restaurant. The call was your typical missing persons case. A group of 4 campers had gone out into the Alaskan wilderness, and planned on being gone for a week. When they didn't come back 2 days after they were supposed to, the authorities were called in to search the area. They haven't reported back since last night, and with the Wendigo season about to be in full swing, I had an idea of what may have happened. Since work had been slow lately, I gladly accepted the job. I wouldn't need anything more than what I brought for most of my hunts, except winter gear, but I always like to be over-prepared. My usual gear included heavy-duty gloves, a monkswood plant, a crossbow with 12 bolts, a 9mm pistol fully tipped with silver-tipped rounds, and 2 extra clips along with some basic rations. This time, however, I would be taking my flamethrower along for the trip, as Wendigos and most creatures in general don't care for fire. As for the monkswood and silver-tipped rounds, both the monkswood poison and silver were lethal to anything I hunted. Something you may not know is that Wendigos tend to behave differently depending on where they live. In the lower 48, they are usually solitary, using their ability to mimic human vocals to lure their prey in. In Alaska and Canada, they completely change up their hunting tactics. What they do in these regions to the north is typically travel in groups of at least 4 or 5 and rush their prey. Whatever the reason, they are far more aggressive in these areas, and I advise you not to visit their territory from mid-October to mid-March. I felt the cold autumn breeze rustle in my hair as soon as I arrived in Anchorage. The man who put in a call was waiting for me at the airport to talk in more depth about what happened. His heavy Russian accent made him hard to understand, but I got the gist of what he wanted to inform me about. The poor soul was worried to death about what may have befallen his daughter and her friends. Where things became interesting is when he told me that he didn't believe it was a Wendigo that had gotten to the campers. I asked what he thought it was, but, in his words, he dare not speak its name. I won't lie, I was pissed. Maybe this poor old bastard had some meaningful information that could help me, but now I had nothing more to go on than before. A normal hunter would have decided to turn back right there. I'm not a normal hunter. A massive well of curiosity overflowing with speculation opened up in my mind. I came upon the campsite at a time where I had about 2 or so hours of sunlight to work with, and it was necessary to move quickly. I had to walk nearly 5 miles from where I parked, feeling watched the entire time. It wouldn't be to my advantage to be stuck out in the night with a Wendigo or whatever other monstrosities stalked the night. There is only one advantage I'd have if it made it to the night time. Surely it would. The moon was going to be full, so my surroundings would be at least illuminated enough for me to see. If it were a new moon, even a hunter as skilled as myself would be easy pickings. Searching the campsite went as expected. It was completely derelict. Nothing in the woods around me was making a single sound. There was only pure, dead silence. Whatever came through there did make a pretty damn good account of itself. Tents were ripped as if they had been through a paper shredder multiple times and were subsequently put into a blender. Droplets of blood were everywhere, staining the surrounding trees and what remained of the tents. Somehow, where the campfire had once looked like it was used the night before I came to investigate, that meant someone around here was alive and was also smart enough to know that the fire kept the Wendigos at bay. Or at least that's how it's supposed to be. A mangled body of a man littered with large gashes and bite marks lay a few feet away from the fire. At first glance, it looked like a cut and dry Wendigo killing. The claw marks were consistent with previous leftovers I had seen, but the bite marks weren't. All of the internal organs of this poor man were ripped out and eaten. Even with all of that, there was no blood from his corpse. This worried me more than anything. No monster I'd hunted before had ever left a corpse without blood. Except vampires, and they didn't devour people's internal organs. Over by the bushes, I noticed a young woman and another man in the same state as their friend. 2 more bodies that appeared to be akin to those of the park rangers again had the same wounds. They had to be the search party. I scouted some of the nearby trees, and I saw it. The body of a Wendigo. It was horribly disfigured. Its emaciated frame was completely broken, and its antlers shattered. I knew then I had to either leave or stay and kill this mystery demon. Against my better judgment, I enclosed myself within the campsite, using my flamethrower to create a ring of fire between myself and the tree line. All the while, something still gnawed at the back of my mind. There were 4 campers, 3 bodies. Something didn't add up. A weak female voice spoke from a tall tree directly behind me. "You shouldn't have done that. The fire brought it here last time." I turned to see her visibly shaken, her clothes in tatters, her blonde hair a complete mess, her blue eyes full of tears and fear. I felt sympathy for her. I had once been like her in my earlier days. It was my first ever hunt. A werewolf had run me up into an old attic, and I was ready to throw everything away. Its evil red eyes glared as if forever burned into my memory, constantly haunting my nightmares. In that moment, I stood tall and became what I am now, a hunter that shows no mercy to monsters. Never show mercy. They will not return the favour. "Come up here!" the girl screamed, having all of her faded life return to her in that single instant. I hesitated. Skinwalkers often deploy this tactic of sympathetic people. However, she was right. No sooner than the girl had mentioned it, I heard something barreling through the trees from my left. It was supernaturally fast. The branches snapped and the pine needles crushed. The beast's footfalls became louder and heavier as it approached. I hastily climbed the tree. It was difficult with my gear, but I couldn't afford to leave any of it behind, besides my flamethrower, which I discarded for my self-preservation. Somehow, I managed to elevate myself high into the tree branches. I guess sheer willpower coupled with adrenaline produced by unadulterated fear can accomplish nearly any physical feat of strength. The girl made to scream as the behemoth burst into the clearing, but I was able to reach and cover her mouth albeit with some strain. In the clearing stood a massive wolf. If I had to guess, he was probably close to 7 feet tall at the shoulder. A light breeze blew through his thick, white hair. A pair of gleaming, evil red eyes were pointed up at me from the wolf, and his face was curled into a snarl, revealing fangs dripping with a crimson-red liquid. The low-pitched, distorted howl he bellowed was beyond deafening. It was more. It was commanding and primal. The wolf paced around my ring of fire and stepped through it after one full circle. Its hair wasn't singed, even in the slightest, by the roaring flames. The wolf stayed until the moon had risen high in the sky, staring into my soul with his evil eyes the entire time. But once I could hear the trees rustling in the distance and the unmistakable shrieks of wendigos, the wolf left. Knowing these monsters as I did, I knew he would come back. He wanted both of us dead, but why hadn't he already killed us? Surely he had enough strength to ram the tree and knock it down, taking us with it and providing an easy meal. The beast could have leaped up with his powerful legs and kept doing so until one of us was pulled down along with him. As I tried to think of a way out of our predicament, the girl spoke to me for the first time in hours. "Why are you here?" she asked, making the defeat she felt audible. "Some Russian guy called me to find out what happened to you guys. The better question is, how did you survive?" I questioned in return. "So Natalia's dad sent you. I lived because they died. That thing almost got me too, but it snagged my jacket instead. I've been up here for 3 days." I could feel the tears well up in my eyes. Luckily, I still had my pack with me. I pulled out a piece of jerky and water bottle and handed it to her. "Here, you need this more than I do. May I get your name?" She quickly but gratefully snatched it and started eating and drinking. "I know it's not much, but I won't let you die, not if I can help it." Her voice perked up a bit after having her meagre substance. "My name's Gillian, and thank you. I thought I'd starve up here." "I hate to have to do this, but what do you know about that wolf?" "It's called the Waheela. My friend John's grandpa told us about it. I'm sorry, but that's all I know." Shit, I thought to myself, trying not to look worried, which I could tell wasn't working due to Gillian becoming more worried herself. Every other hunter that had been sent after the Waheela never came back. These are the top of the game in North America. No matter how long it takes, they always kill something they set their sights on, and now we were likely its next form of food when it came back. At that time, not a single person had ever documented its abilities. There was only a speculation as to what it could do. I've seen firsthand what it leaves behind, and unless you have a death wish, never go after the Waheela. "What's wrong?" she asked, wanting to know what someone like me could possibly be afraid of. "It's nothing," I lied to no avail. "You might as well tell me. We either leave alive or we die," she declared with the same fire I used to have in my earlier days. "All right, I'll tell you, but you won't like it. I'm one of the top monster hunters out here. People pay me a pretty penny for the guys like me to do this stuff, and as good as I am, as good as other hunters like me are, none of us have ever come back from hunting the Waheela." Strangely, this didn't faze her optimism. Her will to live burned brighter than a still raging ring of fire below. That lit a new fire in me. I had to get us out of here alive. "Well, who said you wouldn't be the first?" Gillian said, reaffirming my newfound resolve. God, she reminded me so much of the woman I began my hunting career for. When I was 19, we went out camping together in the Appalachians, just the two of us. A skinwalker took her from me, and I vowed to avenge her. I know it's like some overdone movie cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. We as humans have the drive to get a revenge for our comrades and loved ones. That skinwalker ended up being the second demon I'd killed after that werewolf. It was like a rite of passage. Killing that bastard though, I knew there was no going back after having done it. And here I was, 7 years later, watching someone go through what I did. Maybe, in a way, my girl did come back to me. You know, maybe you're right. I agreed with her. Much to her delight, now I was determined, more than ever, to come back alive. I opened one of my pockets on my pack and put on my gloves. Then I opened my second pocket and carefully removed the monkswood plant. Using what was left of the water, I distilled it, as the Waheela can smell even the faintest scent of it. I tipped my crossbow bolts with my concoction and waited. There would only be time for one shot before the massive wolf knew what we were trying to do, if it didn't already. I turned to Gillian and told her, handing her my 9mm. Be quiet no matter what you see or hear. If something happens to me, I need you to run. Just make it out of the forest. I can buy you enough time for that. She nodded in compliance. It warmed my heart. Knowing at least one of us would survive the night, although I didn't want to die myself. What felt like another 2 or so hours passed. The fire had long since burned itself out, and the sun was rising. And then we heard it. A Wendigo was making its way towards our clearing, and from its frantic sound and movements, the Waheela was dead on its trail. As soon as the Wendigo broke the tree line, it would be over. And sure enough, the Waheela pounced on it just as predicted. And this was my chance. I shot my crossbow. Direct hit. The bolt lodged itself between the massive wolf's shoulder blades as it eviscerated its prey. The howl echoed throughout the forest, making it sound as if the forest itself was in pain. The potent poison would need a few minutes to work its way throughout the Waheela's massive body as it scampered away. The Wendigo was still alive, letting out its loud shrieks of anguish as it crawled to the base of our tree and then began climbing. Before I could reload my crossbow, I heard the crack of a gunshot. Between the demon's eyes was a smoking hole. It no longer moved, save for a couple of twitches. Gillian and I climbed down the tree and sprinted in the direction of the trailhead. The feeling of being watched was following us the entire way until we reached the last clearing before the beginning of the trail. The menacing presence that had been stalking us was standing in the centre of the clearing. Stumbling towards us was the Waheela, crossbow bolt still wedged in its back. It was clearly succumbing to the poison, but even that wouldn't stop this hellhound from its endeavour to murder us. Gillian froze. I wrenched a pistol from her firm grip as the monster charged at us, teeth bared, red eyes glaring, and mouth frothing. One shot was all it took, and it was over. The Waheela's body seized up, and it dropped to the ground with a resounding and satisfying thud. We made it to the truck I pulled up in the day prior. I radioed someone nearby and told them about what they had to retrieve from the forest. And at first, they sounded skeptical. This wasn't the person intended to receive the message, but after some fumbling with the radio on the other end, we were given a green light to leave the area. I don't know if it was my imagination or not, but I swear I saw a pair of red eyes watching us leave. A group of campers went missing in Alaska. I was sent to investigate. Part 2. Let's get straight into that. Something happened after we left. Gillian did the favour of making my last post for me as we sped off. Afterwards, about 30 or so miles down a remote road, something rammed our truck, breaking off a sizable chunk of the bed, causing a vehicle to spin out of control and veer off to the side of a narrow road. Slamming on the brakes, we lost enough speed so the tree we hit only shattered the windshield. The airbags deployed to prevent any serious injury, but I was still left with a bruised chest. At this moment I knew I had failed. The Waheela was back. Then came the howl. That unholy wail of a howl. My adversary had tricked me into thinking it was dead. I was careless, overestimating my abilities and underestimating those of my quarry. Though we couldn't see it, we could feel the hate and rage exuding from the outside of the truck. It was only a matter of time before the Waheela ripped our only way out of here apart piece by piece. What else was it capable of? I would assume regeneration is within its skill set, along with possibly a way of rapidly fighting off infections and poisons it wasn't already accustomed to. Nothing would surprise me at this point. I reached into the back seat for my pack and yanked it to the front, where I could rummage through to find a temporary solution to our problem. The squelching of metal began from the front end of the truck. No, not just from the front. The sound was coming from everywhere. The Waheela from before had returned with a pack of 3 others, which were even larger than he was. The crossbow bolt had been partially broken off, most likely when he gave chase to us again. It was only a matter of time before they ripped enough of the truck apart to get to us. Tears fell from Gillian's eyes as she had her hope of survival ripped away in but an instant. No, where is it? I thought to myself as I quickly shifted around through my bags and many pockets. No, I couldn't have forgotten it. My only way out of this situation was within the confines of my bag. It had to be there. Finally, I felt 2 small objects about the size of my palm. I wouldn't be using the second one unless a suicide attack was my only option. This wouldn't be anything close to a permanent solution, but it would buy us enough time to regroup. Gillian, I have a plan. I whispered softly into her ear, but loud enough so she could hear me. She didn't respond, but stared intently, wanting to know what my last-ditch effort would be. I have something in my hand right now, and when I throw it, we need to run. There's somewhere we can go that's not too far from here. Follow the road and there should be an old shack we can hole up in. It's about a mile or so from here. And one last thing. Don't look back. I'll meet you there. She nodded her head and waited for me to put out a final gambit into action. Which happened first, I can't say. The windshield shattered when a Waheela's head bashed into it as I pulled the pin and threw the grenade underhand into directly over the top of the truck. A bright white light and shrapnel flew in all directions within the immediate vicinity. Had it worked? The dazed look in the eyes of the monsters told me I was successful. One of them, however, was unfazed by the shower of light and shards of metal. The largest of the 4, their alpha, bared its teeth and rammed the truck for the second time. We jumped out as our transport lurched backwards, crushing one of the beast's packmates against a tree. Another of their howls rocked the forest as we sprinted away. Adrenaline was the only thing driving us to our makeshift safe house. Trees began falling behind us. Damn it! This is what you get the big bucks for. Get it together. Everything has a weakness. You need to find it, Lance. Prove you're the best. I scolded myself in my head. The old run-down shack was in sight now. A few hundred more feet and we'd make it. It wouldn't make much difference though. What time could it buy us? A few minutes at best? Nevertheless, we bolted inside as soon as we reached the door, and when Gillian opened her mouth to say something, a huge hand moved to cover it to silence her. I turned to remove it until I noticed it was a human hand. Be quiet, a voice with a thick Russian accent whispered. It wasn't the same man who sent me here. This man was much larger and far more muscular. He was built like a smaller version of the Incredible Hulk and had obviously been living off the land for a long time, his thick black beard only adding to my theory. I heard the hounds from hell outside snarling at the house but refusing to enter it. Floorboards creaked as the man walked to the back of the room to return holding a severed head of a Waheela. My mouth became agape as the man opened the door, holding the head up high in front of the still living wolves. Upon seeing it, they dispersed as quickly as they had tracked us here. My name is Dmitri. You are welcome to stay here under one condition, the man said to us with a warmth in his voice that made us feel safe. You will help me kill the rest of these monsters. Nothing I tried works. Silver didn't work. Even monks with poison belly had an effect on them, I stated desperately, searching for an answer. Dmitri glowered at me with a disappointment and shook his head. These methods may work on most of your other monsters, but the Waheela is special. It is not so easily killed. The only proven method is to behead the alpha. In a way, they are like vampires. The other 3 in this one's pack are regular wolves that will be turned into Waheelas by being bitten and having their organs consumed. They are then reanimated as new Waheelas. But if you kill the alpha, they perish with it. I was at a loss for words. This man could be our saviour, our light at the end of the tunnel. And Gillian was the one to work up the courage to ask, "How do you behead one of these things?" Dmitri briskly walked to the back of the room and came back with an ancient-looking sword with a Russian inscription on it. "This blade is the only known weapon known to be able to behead the Wahila. The inscription is simply there for decoration." "What metal sword?" I inquired of Dmitri, hoping I could make one of my own should I ever need to hunt a Wahila again in the future. "It is a blend of titanium and platinum. The platinum gives the weapon flexibility and titanium gives it strength and structure. I do not understand why, but this is the only blend of metal that can kill this beast," Dmitri replied, proudly, as he brandished the sword in front of us. He handed it to me. I was slightly taken aback by this. "You must be the one to kill it. Your eyes tell me you have been through many trials in your life. But it is you who wants the Wahila, and it that wants you." I took the sword and held it above my head to inspect it. It was crafted to perfection and easy to wield. I showed Dmitri the second grenade I still had, clutched in my left hand. "If we fail, I have this," I said coldly. Instead of asking what it does, Dmitri nodded in understanding, and Gillian put her hand on my shoulder as a show of her being willing to die if it meant getting rid of these creatures and beasts once and for all. "I'll tell you what this grenade does. Each hunter is given one of these by the government scientists that trained them, whether they choose to remain affiliated or not. It's given as a last resort weapon. What it does is destroy all organic matter within a mile radius." Dmitri allowed us to sleep on the upstairs floor while he kept watch for the unsavoury creatures looking for a midnight snack. My dreams were haunted by my failure to end it that day. I fell asleep wallowing in my torment. We awoke the next morning to Dmitri calling us for some breakfast. Anything to eat sounded good at the time, and the venison was the best thing I had ever tasted after finally having time to eat. I wondered if that was how Gillian felt the night we first met. We ate just enough to go on for the day, and if we ate too much, we wouldn't be lethargic and slow, which is something we can't afford to be in the coming battle with the Wahila. "Come, we must go to their den. It will be easier if we attack during the day," Dmitri commanded us to no objection. The hike didn't take long before we found the mouth of the vast cave. This had to be where the Wahila spent their time during most of the day. My hands clenched the sword tightly as we drew closer. Gillian and Dmitri were packing road flares to lure the monsters out, along with P90s for protection. The bullets wouldn't have much effect on the great wolves, but maybe the initial hellfire would stun them long enough for me to make a break for the Alpha. Dmitri and Gillian took up positions on each side of the cave, with me at the centre. I was ready. It was now or never. I held up my fingers and silently counted down from 3. As my third finger closed into my fist, they broke the flares and threw them into the mouth of the cave. The hellish howls returned, amplified by the acoustics of their owner's lair. All 4 of the mighty wolves sprinted out of the cave with their sights trained on me as I held position, waiting for my comrades to open fire. When the gunfire began, 2 of the pack split from the group to charge Dmitri, while the one with the crossbow bolt lodged in its back bolted towards Gillian. Perfect. It was just me and the Alpha now. He barreled towards me, and that's when I realised how much larger he was than his pack mates. He utterly dwarfed them. I'd guess at least 10 feet tall at the shoulder and fangs nearly 7 inches long each. His mighty jaws were lined with those razor-sharp blades of teeth, and the red eyes didn't only appear to be glowing. They genuinely had a malevolent, bright glow to them, broadcasting further the Alpha Wahila's intent to kill. Again, I was faced with a moment where I would have one chance to strike. Everything rode on this one final gambit. I wasn't fast enough. The Wahila's head came crashing into me and sent me flying and landing hard onto the ground. My ribs were surely broken and my sternum was very likely cracked. I coughed up blood all over the ground as I attempted to pick myself up. On my hands and knees, I could see everything around me happening in slow motion. Gillian was running out of ammunition as her opponent pressed forward. Dimitri had already expended his and was using the butt of his gun to bash the wolves on the head. The Alpha lunged at me, and there was nothing that I could do. I had dropped the sword when I was sent into the air like a popfly. It was only a few feet away from where I had landed, battered and broken. I stared at it. Our only chance of surviving was a few feet away from me, but I couldn't move. Things went from bad to worse as I felt the teeth of the Wahilas tear open my chest cavity. I could still barely breathe, which was only made worse when the giant tore out one of my lungs. My life was fading away. The two people who bet their lives on me were going to die if I didn't do something now. Everything was going black now. I had always wondered what it would be like to die. As a kid in high school, I thought I would pass on peacefully in my sleep. Not like this. Not like this. Not like this. Not like this. I kept repeating in my mind over and over again as my life was almost gone. Gillian's screams and pleas for help didn't fall on deaf ears as her assailant had knocked her to the ground. Dimitri was now fighting two of these things barehanded and was holding his own in the beginning, but he too was starting to wear down. My will to live immediately sprang into action. There were others counting on me, those that were killed by these hellspawn to avenge them and my two friends here with me now. I did the only thing I could think of. I snatched the grenade from my pocket and jammed it into the Wahila's right eye, causing it to reel back for a few seconds. Gillian's screams became louder as her wolf reached her as she instinctively went into a fetal position. I sprang to my feet, clutching what was left of my chest, and somersaulted to the sword. I knew what I had to do. The Alpha Wahila charged me once more, and this time using its head to pin me to the ground, but this time it would be difficult. My grip on the sword hadn't failed me. As the behemoth of the wolf began gorging itself again on my innards, I swung the blade with every ounce of remaining strength I had. The cut was nowhere near perfect, but it got the job done. This time, it had truly ended as the Alpha Wahila's head fell off onto me. Its packmates dropped to the ground, and they were dead, and I welcomed the cold embrace of death myself as everything grew black again. I woke up to a bright, blinding light tonight. I was in a hospital. How was I alive? I was grateful to be among the living still. Gillian and Dimitri escaped with some gashes on their arms and legs, but nothing major. I, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. One of my lungs was confirmed to be missing and I had lost a lot of blood. As I sit here typing this, Gillian and Dimitri tell me that they rushed me here as soon as possible and that they stayed here the entire night to make sure I'd pull through. I'll be getting surgery soon and blood transfusions to save my life. That means I'll be out of commission for a while. Hopefully, I'll have some more stories to tell in the future. But for now, stay safe, everyone. Wow. Absolutely awesome stuff there, the author S. Zerdok Ridge. I do hope I pronounced that correctly. Thank you ever so much for your kind permission to narrate this, and I hope you enjoyed my rendition. Guys and girls, as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know down below in the comments what you thought. Please do like and share. It really does help with the channel and our community further, help us smash our way through the 30,000 mark. I hope you're all well and happy and enjoying a busy week of work. And above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.